परिहरेत् नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीर्वुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजाता सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा
राम राम हरे हरे।
I chanted the Mangalacharan by muting myself. Okay. I thought, I hope it is audible. I completed the Mangalacharan prayers.
Yes, Prayer is audible.
Okay. So we'll continue the fourth chapter. We're beginning the Ambarish Maharaj section. So yesterday we saw Parshit Maharaj is asking a question. I wish to hear about the story of Ambarish Maharaj, who was released from the insurmountable curse of a Brahmana. 15th verse. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ambarisho Mahabhaga Saptadvipavati Mahim Avyayam cha Shriyam Labdva Vibhavam Chatulam Bhuvi Meneti Durlabam Pumsam Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam Vidwan Vibhava Nirvanam Tamo Vishati Yat Puman.
Shukdev Goswami said, Maharaj Amrish, the most fortunate personality,
Somebody
achieved.
read translation.
Shukdev Goswami said, Maharaj Amrish, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity
Hare
on the earth.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we are not audible to you.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Uh, Hare Krishna. Online devotees, are we audible?
Bro, you are audible. Bhaktivedanta class is audible.
Is somebody reading translation? I'm not able to hear.
Prabhuji is not able to hear us.
Yes. Okay. I don't know.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Shukdev Goswami said, Maharaj Amrish, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world,
Oh,
consisting of 7 islands,
Hmm.
and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. Although such a
I'm not
opposition,
able to hear your voice. I don't know what is the problem.
Yes.
Surprised.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Shravan Gaur Haripu, can you read Prabhuji? आप पढ़ के जरा देखते हैं. आप पढ़ के देखिए.
नहीं, प्रोजी को हमारा वॉइस भी नहीं सुनाई दे रहा.
Okay. I don't know how I will be able to hear the questions of the devotees, but
understanding.
let me just. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
you are audible, Prabhuji. Are we able to
Okay.
hear us?
Yeah,
Prabhuji?
now I just changed my microphone. It seems there is some problem with that microphone. So now I'm able to hear. Okay.
although
So,
such a position, Shukdev Goswami said, Maharaj Amrish, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. Although such a position is rarely obtained, Maharaj Amrish did not care for it at all, for he knew very well that all such opulence is material. Like that which is imagined in a dream, such opulence will ultimately be destroyed. The king knew that any non-devotee who attains such opulence merges increasingly into material nature's mode of darkness.
So Ambarish Maharaj's story begins. Ambarisho Mahabhaga, the most fortunate personality, Ambarish Maharaj, Sapta Dvipavatim Mahim. Sapta Dvipa refers to Jambu Dvipa, Plaksha Dvipa, Kusha Dvipa, Shalmali Dvipa. He attained sovereignty over all the 7 Dvipas. And Avyayam cha Shriyam Labdva. Avyayam cha Shriyam. Avyayam is the adjective for Shriyam. Inexhaustible wealth. He attained inexhaustible wealth. Labdva. Vibhavam cha Atulam Bhavi. Atulam Bhuvi, which is unequaled wealth. Unequaled wealth and power on the earth, which is Mene Ati Durlabam Pumsam. Ati Durlabam Pumsam, which is rarely attained by the humans. So, like before understanding the next Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam, like sometimes when somebody has not achieved success in one's life, there is a type of vaira. There are 3 types of temporary vairagya. One is the Prasava Vairagya, and second is Mashana Vairagya, and third is Abhava Vairagya. So Prasava Vairagya means somebody, when a person is going through certain great difficulty, at that time a person develops a detachment. Suppose when a woman is going through labor pain, a person when they go through detachment. If somebody, when a person goes through great difficulty or pain, a person may develop some detachment from sense gratification. And another is smashana vairagya. Smashana vairagya is in the crematorium, a person may develop detachment. And then abhava vairagya. Abhava vairagya is when a person has not achieved certain success or wealth, then he may show some detachment, like just like that all grapes are sour. That the monkey or whichever was trying to eat the grapes, when it was unable to get any of the grapes, then he said the grapes are sour. That's like abhava vairagya. So, but here, Ambarish Maharaj, he actually obtained such power and wealth, which is very rarely achieved by any human being. But even after achieving that, Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam, Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam, Vidwan Vibhava Nirvanam Tamo Vishati Yat Puman. Understanding that the power was destructible, he considered everything to be as worthless as a dream. Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam. Tamo Vishati Yat Puman, because of which a person falls into ignorance. So this is after achieving so much, to consider that as actually a dream, instead of becoming intoxicated with that opulence. So that requires something very superior, higher taste. And we will see in the next verse also that will come. But in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami talks about the 6 characteristics of bhakti. Out of that, one characteristic is that moksha laguta krita. When a person comes to the stage of bhava bhakti, a person considers liberation and even any kinds of material happiness like swarga loka, etc., any opulence to be insignificant. Moksha laguta krita. Or Sandrananda Visheshatma. Sandrananda Visheshatma is a person experiences such intense spiritual happiness that one does not even perceive the happiness from happiness of the material platform. So Sarvam Tat Swapna Samstutam, it shows that Ambarish Maharaj was actually in the stage of prema, was in the stage of bhava or prema. Vasudeve Bhagavati Tadbhakteshu Prapto Bhavam Param Vishvam Yenedam Loshtravat Smritam.
Maharaj Ambrish was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev, and of the saintly persons who are the Lord's devotees. Because of this devotion, he thought of the entire universe as being as insignificant as a piece of stone.
So Yenedam Loshtravat Smritam. He considered the entire world to be as worthless as a stone. So these two verses, 15 to 17, these 3 verses show that Ambarish Maharaj was on the stage of prema. Because only in that stage a person has this kind of realization for the material happiness to be like a stone or to be like a swapna. In the stage of Nishtha, the first 2 characteristics of bhakti, that is Kleshagni and Shubhada, are manifest. At that stage, there is perception of the happiness on a material platform, but one considers the happiness from happiness from devotional service to be superior to the happiness from material platform. But in the stage of bhava, a person considers even the desire for liberation and the happiness of the material platform to be insignificant. And in the stage of prema, there is no perception of the material happiness. The Sandrananda Vishesha Atma means just like a lead, the metal lead is so thick that even the X-ray cannot pass through it. That is how the density of that lead. So similarly, the happiness from the devotional service is so thick, and a person does not even perceive any other kind of happiness. He considers the whole world to be worthless as a stone. So this shows the Ambarish Maharaj's prema. So the next 3 verses describe how did he achieve this prema. What was the means, or what was the sadhana did he perform to achieve this level of prema? So that is described in 18, 19, 20, very famous verses about Ambarish Maharaj. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vacham sivaikunta gunanu varnane karau harer mandiramarjanadishu shrutim chakarachuta satkatodaye mukundalingalaya darshane drishau tadbrutya gatras parshenga sangamam granam cha tatpada saroja saurave Shrimat Tulasya Rasanam Tadarpite Padau Hare Kshetra Padanu Sarpane Shiro Rishikesha Padabhivandane Kamam Chadasye Natu Kama Kamyaya Yatottama Shloka Janashrayaratihi.
Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulasi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord, 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires.
So there are various devotees who have actually perfected by different items of sadhana bhakti. Parishit Maharaj perfected by Shravanam, Shukadeva Goswami perfected by Kirtanam, Prahlad Maharaj by Smaranam. But Ambarish Maharaj is very special because Ambarish Maharaj engaged in all the items of bhakti from Shravanam to Atma Nivedanam. So Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayor, first he engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of the Lord, Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, Karau Harer Mandira Marjanadishu, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, Shrutim Chakara Achyuta Sat Katadoye, and he engaged his ears in Achyuta Sat Kata, in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. Mukunda Linga Alaya Darshane Drishau, he engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna. And so on, actually. Tad Britya Gatra Sparshenga Sangamam. So we see that Krishna says, Yomam Yevam Asam Mudo Janati Purushottamam Sa Sarvavid Bhajati Mam Sarva Bhavena Bharata. So one who is without confusion knows me as the Supreme Person, knows everything, and he worships me by all the methods. Sarva Bhavena Bharata. Sarva means like such a person worships me by all the methods of bhakti. So the example of this is Ambarish Maharaj. He worships me in all ways by all the angas of bhakti. We can see that sometimes even in one particular sense is not properly engaged. That particular sense can drag a person in different direction. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasamam manaha. The senses are so strong and impetuous that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person with a discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So Ambarish Maharaj engaged all the senses beginning with the mind. So mind becomes very crucial. That's why Vishnu Chakotipa specially says that just as a king engages his servants in his kingdom, wherever Ambarish engaged his mind and senses, there the mind and senses would go, taking the order on their heads. So sometimes our senses may be engaged, but our mind may not be engaged. There were two brothers, Vritti and Suvritti. They were going on a pilgrimage. They were going to take part in the Bindu Madhav temple in Prayag for the Janmashtami festival. So when they were on the way, there was a very severe rain with lightning, and at that time, on the way it was very severe. They were not able to walk only. So at that time, one of the brothers, forget which brother, maybe Vritti, Suvritti, Suvritti, he took shelter of a brothel which was just on the road. But the other brother, he said, no, I cannot take shelter of a brothel. And he just continued to walk ahead, although it was raining quite heavily. And this other brother reached the Bindu Madhav temple before Janmashtami. And this brother who stayed at the brothel, he was actually thinking about how this brother would be spending time in the temple in the Janmashtami festival. He would be attending the Abhishek, he would be doing Abhishek, he would be offering obeisances to the Lord, he would be hearing Krishna Katha, and he felt, oh, that my brother is so fortunate that he is able to attend the Janmashtami festival in Bindu Madhav. And he somehow was able to tolerate all this intense rain and cold, and he just went ahead. I am so unfortunate that on this Janmashtami day, I have to be in a very sinful place like a brothel. So I must have performed, I have not performed so much of piety to attend the Janmashtami festival in the Prayag and Bindu Madhav temple. And whereas the brother who reached the Bindu Madhav temple, he was actually participating in the Janmashtami festival. But he was thinking in his mind that, oh, my brother who stayed at the brothel, that he must be enjoying the pleasures in the brothel. Maybe he may be enjoying with some nice women in the brothel. And I am missing that enjoyment. He was actually hearing the Krishna Katha, he was actually offering obeisances, he was doing Abhishek. But in his mind, he was actually thinking about the enjoyment, the activities which must be happening in the brothel. And then Janmashtami got over. He actually started from the brothel. And this brother, when the rain stopped, he also started leaving from the brothel. And both of them, on the way, they happened to meet each other. When they happened to meet each other, they were so happy to meet each other. But at that time, there was an intense lightning which struck them, and then both of them died on the spot. So at that time, Yamadutas came to take away that brother who attended the Janmashtami festival, and Vishnudutas came to take that brother who was in the brothel. So the brother who was in the brothel, he asked, like, what kind of justice system is it? And the subtle body asked, like my brother spent the time in the Bindu Madhav temple in Janmashtami, and I spent the time in the brothel, but I am being taken to Vaikuntha, my brother is being taken to hell. What kind of justice is it? So at that time, the Vishnu Dutas, they explained, your brother, he was actually in the Bindu Madhav temple during Janmashtami, but in his mind, he was actually thinking of enjoying the different activities which happen in the brothel. But although you were in the brothel, but you are only meditating upon the different devotional activities in the day of Janmashtami. And therefore, we are taking you to Vaikuntha, and your brother will go to hell. And then, but this brother said that, but I cannot be without my brother. If my brother is not coming along with me to Vaikuntha, then I also don't want to go to Vaikuntha. So at that time, Vishnudutas said that he asked that, what can I do so that my brother also comes along with me to Vaikuntha? The Vishnudutas said that in the previous life, when you took the Magha Snana in the month of Magha in Prayag, you took Magha Snana in your mind, the month of Magha in Prayag. Offer the result of that Magha Snana for your brother, and by that your brother will also come along with you. And then this brother offered the result of the Magha Snana which he performed in his mind for the sake of his brother. And his brother also came, his sinful, this thing was eradicated, he also came along with him to Vaikuntha. So this story comes in the, I think in the Padma Puran, the section on the glories of Magha Snana. But I am telling the story in order to tell that the conclusion of the story is that how one should perform the devotional activities by investing one's mind and consciousness into it. So Ambarish Maharaj first fixed his mind on Krishna. The essence of sadhana bhakti is to somehow or other fix the mind on Krishna. Tasmat kena pyupayena mana Krishna niveshayet. So, and then of course Ambarish Maharaj engaged all the other senses. Padau Hare Kshetra Padanu Sarvane Shiro Rishikesha Pada Abhivandane Kamam Dasye Natu Kama Kamyaya. That means he engaged all his desires in serving the Lord without a desiring material enjoyment. Yata Uttama Shloka Janashraya Ratihi. in order to develop rati as possessed by the great devotees. So, so Prabhupada explains in the purport that the first business in devotional service is to accept a bona fide guru and render service under his guidance, who trains him to engage the various senses in the bhakti. Rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So we'll go ahead. Evam sada karma kalapamaatmanah paredi yagne bhagavatyadokshaje sarvatma bhavam vidadan mahimimam tannishta viprabhihitashashasaha.
In performing his prescribed duties as king, Maharaj Ambrish always offered the results of his royal activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, who is the enjoyer of everything and is beyond the perception of material senses. What happened? He certainly took advice from Brahmanas who were faithful devotees of the Lord, and thus he ruled the planet Earth without difficulty.
Evam sada karma kalapamaatmanah, performing devotional acts daily with rati by his mind. With rati by his mind and senses to the Supreme Lord Krishna, whose worship is superior to other processes. Whose sarvatma bhavam means using his mind and senses. And yeah, whose worship is superior to other processes. Ambarish Maharaj ruled the world, taking advice from the devotee brahmanas. Tannishta vipra abhihita shashasaha. Shashasaha means ruled the world. So evam sada karma kalapam atmanah. So here one point which is highlighted is that he didn't take guidance from general brahmanas. He specifically took guidance from the Vaishnava brahmanas. And the Vaishnava brahmanas told him that you appoint proper representatives for ruling the world. You appoint proper competent representatives for ruling the world. And you invest your energy for worshipping the Lord 24 hours a day with your mind and senses. So Ambarish Maharaj was really expert. He performed his responsibility as the king by choosing the right competent persons. And then he engaged his time and senses in the direct devotional activities. We can say Ambarish Maharaj used the principle of lazy intelligence in a spiritual way. Usually we speak about this lazy intelligent, active intelligent, etc. in a management perspective, how one should know, one should delegate most of the things which can be performed by others, and one should personally do what one is supposed to do. Like we tell this principle for a manager, but Ambarish Maharaj followed this principle for his devotional service. Like, it's not that he just delegated the representatives, that means just to escape it, or he didn't. Like he chose a competent representatives. He chose competent representatives and who would rule the world properly. And because he had such attraction for bhakti, and he personally spent his time and energy in performing bhakti. So here also Ambarish Maharaj, one important thing we can see is that normally we find that there are many people's houses, say even the rich people's houses, they have temples. if you see in India, if you recently somebody was saying that like most of the top rich people in India, many of them are Krishna worshippers, or many of them are pious people. So you take Ambani or Birla or many people are actually traditionally worshippers of Krishna. Or they have their temples in their, like you might have seen Birla temples in different parts of India. So many of them are actually they worship Krishna. But one thing we find is that most rich people, at least maybe previously, but at least currently, most people, they appoint a pujari to worship their deities. They don't personally engage the energy and the time to worship the Lord. And really some pujari is appointed who takes care of the worship. But Ambarish Maharaj, in comparison to any of these rich people, Ambarish Maharaj is the Saptadvipapati. But he chose to personally engage in the worship of the Lord. He did not delegate, he delegated the different aspects of management to competent representatives, and he invested his personal time and energy in worshipping the Lord. But usually people delegate the worship of the Lord to some pujaris, and then they are personally involved in, say, increasing their business empire. So this is an important thing from Ambarish Maharaj. How, at least, if not, we may not be able to follow like Ambarish Maharaj, that who engage 24 hours in devotional activities, and by appointing competent representatives for the say kingdom or a business. But at least we can follow to some extent. Some time and energy should be employed in the personal service of the Lord. Like every devotee, whether it's a brahmachari or a grahastha, something we should do regularly in the direct, say, deity worship of the Lord. Of course, other activities are there. Ambarish Maharaj is not only engaged in deity worship, but engaged in hearing, chanting, etc. So we can find people to delegate to different people about taking care of, say, different aspects of management. But we cannot delegate people and ask people to, okay, all of you, I pay this much, you should actually sit and hear Bhagavatam. We can't delegate people for hearing, say, Srimad Bhagavatam, or we can't appoint paid pujaris or paid people for chanting our 16 rounds. So for the direct devotional activities, one should try to engage personally. So there is a verse in the Garuda Puran. Yesterday I had mentioned that. I found this verse today. The symptoms of advanced devotees. Madbhakta Jana Vatsalyam Pujayam Chanumodanam Madkata Shravane Preeti Swara Netradi Vikriya Vishnoscha Karanam Nrityam Tadarte Dambavarjanam Swayam Abhyarchanam Chaiva Yo Vishnum Nopajivati Bhaktir Ashtavidha Kesha Yasmin Lechepi Vartate Sa Viprendro Munishreshta Sa Jnani Sacha Panditaha Tasmai Deyam Tato Grakyam Sacha Pujyo Yata Harihi. The qualities of devotional service are love for my devotees, being very pleased to personally worship me, and being very pleased to hear about my glories, manifesting a choked voice, tears in the eyes, and other symptoms of ecstatic love, dancing in ecstatic love for Vishnu, being free of hypocrisy, personally worshipping the Lord, and not being a professional worshipper. Not being a professional worshipper who worships Vishnu only to earn his livelihood. So these are the qualities of devotional service mentioned in the Garuda Puran. So we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also personally engaged in cleansing the Gundicha temple, in cleaning the altar. Madhavendra Puri personally went to get Chandan for Gopal, although he could have delegated that. Srimati Radharani is personally engaged in cooking for Krishna. So Prabhupada mentions this point. One should take advice from the Vaishnava Brahmanas and not simply from a general Brahmana. And also another point Prabhupada says, like Ambarish Maharaj ruled the world through competent representatives. So Ambarish Maharaj, his representatives, competent representatives were also devotees or Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, whatever. And so therefore such advisors or members of the legislative assembly should not be professional politicians, nor should they be selected by the ignorant public. Rather, they should be appointed by the king. So, see, the democracy system is a very crazy system actually. Democracy system, a democracy is like a system where 1 gram gold, 1 gram diamond, 1 gram copper, 1 gram silver, 1 gram iron, all are of same value. That is for the democracy system. That means the vote of a person in the Tamoguna and the vote of a person in Sattvaguna both have the equal weightage. Somebody who puts a vote in Tamoguna, drinking a liquor and then going to put the vote, and somebody who is in Sattvaguna who knows the overall situation, both their votes have the same value. So and the reality is that the people in Tamoguna or in Rajoguna, they are larger in number, and people in Sattvaguna are actually very less. So therefore Prabhupada says that the representative should be appointed by the king and not elected by the common people. And also, when there are professional politicians means there are many political parties. When somebody wants to stand as a say MLA or MP, the rates are given. Okay, you have to pay this many crores to the party, then you will get a seat to stand as a MP. When such a person gets elected, can we expect that this person is going to do some service to the society? He will think in terms of, because I paid say 2 crore for the MP seat, so he will think how to actually earn beyond 2 crore in the next 5 years. That will be his calculation. That is why I mentioned that day when you are talking about education system. When people pay a huge amount of fees for the education, so they think in terms of, because I paid so much, and therefore when I become a doctor or engineer or something, I have to like reclaim whatever I paid for it. So that is one of the reason in the modern times why we don't find selfless people. Why we find selfless people in less and less in number? Because they come through the education system in which actually it's a commercial education system starting from the childhood. So therefore, what you sow, only that kind of tree will grow. So then when they grow up, they also think in terms of, when they become whichever profession they take up, they think in terms of actually how to extract the money, to how I can earn whatever money I spent. So that's why Prabhupada talks of professional politicians. And citizens under the guidance of a Krishna conscious king will become devotees, and there will be no need to enact new laws every day to reform the way of life in the state. The citizens are trained to become devotees, they will automatically become peaceful and honest. Ambarish Maharaj example is a way to Ambarish Maharaj's rule shows that how to transform the material world to the spiritual world. When there is an ideal king, or when there is a, so that is what Ambarish Maharaj's rule shows. So there are some questions in the chat box. I will take up the questions. We'll just complete certain verses during the break, or after the break, we'll take up those questions. Ijeshvamedai radiyajnam ishwaram maha vibhutyopachitanga dakshinai tatair vasishta sita gautamadibir danvanya bisrotamasau saraswati.
In desert countries where there flowed the river Saraswati, Maharaj Amrish performed great sacrifices like the Ashwamedh Yajna, and thus satisfied the master of all yajnas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such sacrifices were performed with great opulence and suitable paraphernalia, and with contributions of dakshina to the Brahmanas, who were supervised by great personalities like Vasishtha, Asita, and Gautama, representing the king, the performer of the sacrifices.
So Ambarish Maharaj, he perfectly balances responsibilities as a king and also as his attraction for devotional service. So Baldev Vidya Bhushan talks about Parinishta Bhakta and Nirapeksha Bhakta. Parinishta Bhakta, he worships the Lord by the 9 processes of bhakti. At the same time, he performs his varnashram duties responsibly in order to set a right example for the common people. So Nirapeksha Bhakta is a person who just 24 hours he is 24 hours engaged in performing only devotional service. He is like a Madhavendra Puri, who said that I say goodbye to Sandhya Vandanam, I say goodbye to Shraddha rites. Or Jada Bharat is a Nirapeksha Bhakta. Bharat Maharaj is a Parinishta Bhakta. Bharat Maharaj also performed all the yajnas with all the angas very completely. So, Ambarish Maharaj performed all these sacrifices just like Bharat Maharaj by appointing proper representatives. And personally, he was engaged in the direct devotional activities, but he responsibly performed these sacrifices because as a king, one is supposed to show that because in the kingdom there will be various levels of people, not that everyone will be engaged in pure devotional service. Many will have different material desires. So the king has to show that how people can fulfill their material desires by following the Vedic sacrifices. In that way, when people follow dharma to earn artha and kama, and they don't get too much entangled in the sinful activities. Otherwise, they will end up taking the sinful life for satisfying their desires. So Ambarish Maharaj performed all the Vedic yajnas with the complete, without any shortcut, with all the angas of the Vedic yajnas to the representatives. And he also gave appropriate dakshina to the brahmanas in the yajna. Prabhupada explains the yajna for Kali Yuga is Sankirtan yajna. Yasya kratushu girvanai sadasya ritvijo jana tulya rupas chanimisha vyadrishyanta suvasasaha.
In the sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Amrish, the members of the assembly and the priests especially Hota, Udgata, Brahma, and Advaryu, were gorgeously dressed, and they all looked exactly like demigods. They eagerly saw to the proper performance of the yajna.
So the Hota, Udgata, these four priests, they actually represent the four Vedas, and each of them have a particular role in the Vedic yajna. Somebody will be chanting the mantras, somebody will prepare the Vedic, the sacrificial arena. Another person would be like actually performing the yajna. Another person would be like overseeing the everything. Is there any mistake happening? So all these were actually nicely dressed, and they were looking at the sacrifice with unblinking eyes like the Devatas. So Devatas are called as animisha because their eyes don't blink. So because the sacrifice were so gorgeously performed, so these Brahmanas were looking at the sacrifice with unblinking eyes. And Swargona Prartito Yasya Manujair Amara Priyaha Shrinvadbir Upagayadbir Uttama Shloka Cheshtitam.
The citizens of the state of Maharaj Amrish were accustomed to chanting and hearing about the glorious activities of the personality of Godhead. Thus, they never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets, which are extremely dear even to the demigods.
So Ambarish Maharaj not only personally practiced a devotional service, he was also successful in training his citizens also in devotional service. So this is an important point that sometimes to leave behind because any good person, any devotee or any dharmic good person, they want their children or their dependents also to follow what they are practicing. That is the nature of any responsible person. And sometimes one may fail in that responsibility, one may fail in training their dependents. So even one's personal practice of bhakti is actually, that can be easier, but even more difficult is training and leaving behind a legacy. So Ambarish Maharaj even trained his citizens also in hearing and chanting, and they were so satisfied in devotional service, they did not aspire to go to Swargaloka. Samvardayanti yat kama swarajya paribhavita durlabha napi siddhanam mukundam hridi pashyatah.
Those who are situated with the transcendental happiness of rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead are uninterested even in the achievements of great mystics. For such achievements do not enhance the transcendental bliss felt by a devotee who always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart.
So the material pleasures which surpass those of Swarga and are rare even for the Siddhas, that means the mystic Siddhis, even they did not give the citizens bliss because Mukundam Hridi Pashyataha, because they saw Mukunda in their hearts. So these two verses show the advanced nature of the citizens of Ambarish Maharaj. So they experienced such a superior bliss that they did not care for the mystic siddhis or any other material happiness. What was the reason? The enjoyments did not make them blissful because they saw Mukunda in their hearts. Mukundam Hridi Pashyatah. And all this happened by the influence of Ambarish Maharaj. So Ambarish Maharaj had such a superior taste for bhakti. By that, he influenced his entire kingdom. So that is why Prabhupada is quoting this verse, Kaivalyam Narakayate, Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patalis Protkata Damstrayate Vishwam Purna Sukayate Vidimagendradischa Kitayate Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaibhavavatam Tam Gauram Yevastumaha. That a person who has received the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considers liberation to be insignificant, and one considers the heavenly enjoyments to be like the Akasha Pushpa. So actually, liberation is not insignificant. Liberation, Brahmananda is a very, very high degree of happiness. The Taittiriya Upanishad talks about in detail about the gradations of the happiness. And Brahmananda is the top on the list. Taittiriya Upanishad starts from Manushya Ananda. And then it says that 100 times greater than Manushya Ananda is something like Devananda, and then 100 times greater than that is Brihaspati Ananda, 100 times greater than that is Sukra Ananda, like that. I'm not telling the exact name, but it talks about the gradations of the happiness. Each is 100 times superior to the previous one. And the Brahmananda is on the top of the list. Brahmananda is something like 10 to the power 15 or 20 times the Manushya Ananda. So, but higher than Brahmananda is the Premananda. But Kaivalyam Narakayate, when the Brahmananda is considered to be like a hellish, one should not literally take that Brahmananda is equal to hell. Like what it shows is the feelings of the devotee who has achieved the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He considers even Brahmananda to be like a hellish. This is what is called as a subjective reality. The objective reality is the gradations of the happiness presented in the Taittiriya Upanishad. How Brahmananda is like so many times higher than the Manushya Ananda, Devananda, Gandharvananda. But the subjective reality is that the person who has received the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considers even Brahmananda, Kaivalya Ananda to be insignificant, or he considers that to be hellish situation. So Vishwam Purna Sukayate. Material world we say Dukkalayam, but when a person has received the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he considers the he experiences happiness in the entire world. Vishwam Purna Sukayate. So next verse. Sayittam Bhakti Bhavena Tapoyuktena Parthivaha Swadharmena Harim Prinan Sarvan Kaman Shanairjabhau.
The king of this planet, Maharaj Ambarish, thus performed devotional service to the Lord, and in this endeavor practiced severe austerity, always satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his constitutional activities. He gradually gave up all material desires.
I just complete this verse and then we take a break. I just saw the message now. So, Sayittam Bhakti Yogena. So, Ambarish Maharaj satisfied the Lord by devotional service as his main duty. That is why we mentioned Parinishthita Bhakta. Parinishthita Bhakta considers the devotional service as his main duty, but he responsibly performs the Varnashram duties. And because of this, Ambarish Maharaj gradually gave up all the material desires. So, what kind of tapasya tapasya refers to giving up enjoyment, tolerating the difficulties of the body by cleaning the temple, carrying water pots to the Lord, and serving Vaishnavas. Bhakti Swadharmena modifies Bhakti Yogena since the word cha is not used to indicate another item. So Ambarish Maharaj practiced pure Bhakti without getting covered by Jnana and Karma. So his pure bhakti will be described again in the next verses. We'll see that. So we can take a break, or should we have the question and answer now or after the break?
Prabhuji, after the break we can have.
Okay,
So Prabhuji, 10 minutes break. Okay. So
fine.
Hare Krishna will resume, reassemble at 12:32.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. We can start now, Prabhuji.
I'll just take up the questions which are there in the chat box. Arjun Ishwar Prabhu from Balabhadra Kripa Prabhu. What is the significance of mentioning the dynasties of Manu and the sons of Manu for us? Importance of names in the Srimad Bhagavatam and its relevance to us. How can I understand its spiritual importance? Yeah, when we read the names and just the names of the dynasties, definitely it appears somewhat boring, just a list of names. But at least we should theoretically understand that anything which is any word which has fallen within Srimad Bhagavatam, that is spiritual. Just like anything which is the salt, anything which has fallen within the salt mine, it becomes salty. At least theoretically, we should have the conviction that any words, any list of names, the dynasties, practically, it's a natural question, like what is the significance of just reciting these names and what is the relevance for us? It doesn't seem to be any relevance in terms of any lesson or something. But because it is there in the Bhagavatam, it's part of the Bhagavatam. When we go through them, when we read them, then that will purify, because any word which is there within the Bhagavatam, it is completely spiritual. And another way is that how it is relevant to us is that all these names. When we see in the Bhagavatam, when the first canto, this verse comes, Nayat Vachas Chitra Padam Harer Yasho Jagat Pavitram Pragranita Karihichit Tad Vayasam Tirtha Mushanti Manasa Nayatra Hamsa Niramantu Shikshaya. In this verse purport, how the words, those literatures which do not contain the glorification of the Lord, are like a place of pilgrimage for the crows. That purport, it is explained that in the case of the Bhagavatam, don't look at the individual verses or the individual words that may not appear to be containing the glorification of the Lord. For example, in the 9th canto, so many verse after verse just containing the names of the different dynasties, names of the different kings. When you take that individual verse does not contain the glorification of the Lord. But when you take the import of those series of verses, for example, we started from the first chapter, from the Vaivasvata Manu. And then so some story of Sudimna came, and then another again Prashadra came. So if we see Vaivasvata Manu, some of the individual verses in his dynasty may not be contained glorification of the Lord. But the import of those verses that led to the description of Prashadra. And what was the conclusion of the Prashadra story? Although it is just in 10 verses, the Prashadra story is that how Prashadra, although he was cursed to become the Shudra, but by fixing his mind on Krishna, by his devotional service, he transcended that curse, how he attained perfection. So the import of those stories led to devotional service. And similarly, and then there was description of the, say, Chavana Rishi and Sukanya, and then because sequentially it is being described. One, like Sukadeva Goswami is describing each son of Vaivasvata Manu, and then the dynasty through them, like that he is describing. So he came to the one by one he was describing, and in some places where the in some dynasties of the king, in some kings, where there is no significant lesson to learn from the point of view of bhakti, jnana, or vairagya, then Shukdev Goswami just mentions the names. For the son of this son, this king is this. The son of this son is this king is this. He just mentions the name. But wherever there is some significant lesson on the bhakti or the transcendental knowledge and vairagya, then he puts a break. He puts a break there. He put a break on Nabhaga. Before that, there are many verses where he was narrating without putting a break. But in Nabhaga, he put a break because Nabhaga's character is so profound. And then after that, Nabhaga, he put a break for two chapters because he is describing Ambarish Maharaj. In fact, Parishit Maharaj put a break by asking a question. And Shukdev Goswami is describing Ambarish Maharaj for 2 chapters in detail. So in that sense, the individual verses which contain the names may not appear to be relevant, but because they are part of the series of description, which is leading to the description of some great devotee. So because they are connected to it, it is like just like a say train bogie. The train bogie, which is the one which is actually pulling the entire train, that's the engine. But the other bogies are, because they are connected to the engine, so they also reach the destination. They also are going at the same speed. So you can't say because this bogie does not have any engine, therefore this bogie is useless. No, this bogie is connected to that engine. So similarly, the other words, other names, the description of the dynasty, because they are connected, they are leading to the description of Nabhaga. They were leading to the description of Prishadra. They were leading to the description of the character of Sukanya. They were leading to the description of Ambarish Maharaj. So those other names also become spiritualized. And of course, I mentioned yesterday that quote of Bhaktivinoda Thakur from Krishna Samhita, where the importance of knowing the history, it creates a subtle impact how we come in the glorious land of Bharatvarsha, in which so many great kings appeared. So that helps us to, because every person needs an identity to function. So one is on a gross bodily platform, a person identifies himself with the body, and then a person just simply tries to gratify the body. And completely on a spiritual platform, one's identity is Jivera Swarupohi Krishnera Nityadas. But many times a person is not completely situated in the Jivera Swarupohi Krishnera Nityadas. At the same time, one should not be the gross bodily platform. So therefore, one should identify with something which will help him to follow the path of dharma. And before we completely internalize the identity, Jivera Swarupohi Krishnera Nityadas, we need to identify with something material, but which will help us to follow the path of dharma. So therefore, when we identify with the glorious past dynasty, our past, or say forefathers, this one, if it is going to make us responsible, and that's what Krishna did in the Bhagavad Gita by addressing Arjuna in so many names in relation to the dynasty, Bharata dynasty, Bharata, Kaunteya, Bharata Rishabha. He was reminding Arjuna of his responsibility. So this is what I think the significance of the names of these Manus and the dynasties. And Vanamali Govinda Prabhu, can we consider the following as ascending order for degree of renunciation? Parishit Maharaj, and then Prahlad Maharaj and then Ambarish Maharaj. Parishit Maharaj did not counter curse Shringi. Prahlad Maharaj not only did not counter curse, but on the other hand, he prayed for Hiranyakashipu. And Ambarish Maharaj is even superior to Prahlad because he served Durvasa Muni after he returned back. It's a good, thoughtful point that how Ambarish Maharaj superior to Prahlad and Parishit. But in general, I would say it's a logical, thoughtful point. But especially when it comes to like comparing perfected devotees, all these are perfected devotees. Better to actually stick to some opinions of the acharyas, because otherwise, when we try to say, oh, this devotee is superior to this devotee is superior to that, because of without the opinion of the acharya, then we can, just like yesterday we mentioned that when there is conflict between two Vaishnavas, when you take the side of one Vaishnava, you end up committing Vaishnava aparadha. So when there is without the opinion of the acharyas, we may not say we may not much focus on this devotee is superior or inferior, because all these three personalities are all perfected personalities. So Bhakti Rasama Sindhu Rupa Goswami himself talks about Dasya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya, Madhurya. From Rasa platform, there is from the point of view of Rasa, there is a gradation. So when there is a recognized authorities, acharyas make the point, then we can actually repeat it. That's what I feel.
Hare Krishna. I have one question.
Yes.
In this verse of Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindaya, so we see this line, Granam Chatat Pada Saroja Saurabhe, and then Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Chatat Arpite. So Granam is like this nose, and then Saroja is lotus flower, that's what written. Saurabhe is the smell. And then so Granam nose is used for smelling the lotus flower offered. And then Srimat Tulasya Rasanam, so the Tulasi for tasting. That's, it seems like meaning, but in translation is different. Lotus flower significance is not given.
Maybe that might have been missed out. Tatpath Saroja Saurabhe. In Vishnu Chakotipath's translation, maybe Bhanu Maharaj's translation, was it? Say Bhanu Maharaj's translation, he engaged a sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of Tulasi offered to the Lord.
Saroja Saurabhe, then what is that? Saroja Saurabhe.
Saurabhe is the smell actually.
Saroja is lotus.
So Granam is the Granendriya. Tat Pada is the lotus feet. Tat Pada Saroja Saurabhe. So Tat Pada Saroja is the lotus feet. It's not a lotus flower is offered. Saroja is the adjective for Pada.
I mean, word to word, it is like that. Saroja is lotus flower. Yeah. Okay. Feet.
So,
yeah.
Okay. But what should I do? Should I take direct questions or some questions in the chat box?
Prabhuji, yes, Prabhuji, you can start with chat box.
Okay, I'll just complete the questions chat box and then the devotees can.
Achha, Prabhuji, that last question is you wanted to complete. Sorry, I interrupted.
So, yeah, that I mentioned that when it comes to comparing perfected devotees, when there is the opinion of the acharyas, then we can actually do that. Otherwise, we may unnecessarily, from our platform, to say that this devotee is higher than that, his degree of renunciation is higher. That may not be suitable. he might make some mistakes. So some devotees have given some comments about fixing the mind first may be difficult, but it is more practical to engage the senses and body first. That's correct. And thus activities such as preparing to give Bhagavatam stories make one contemplate on each step in the story. In this way makes one always think of the Lord's pastimes within our minds. Yes, it's correct. When we want to like explain something to others, it helps us to think on that pastime, how I can explain. It's true. Yesterday's question, what is the essential lesson we learned from Shukanya episode for devotees? It appears dharmic teaching of obeying the husband, but no connection to Krishna, similar to Mahabharata. What makes this particular story? What makes this story to be in the Bhagavatam? Shukanya's obeying, serving Chavana Rishi, the same principle can also be taken for disciples serving the spiritual master. The spiritual master is old and irritable. The disciple, when he serves the spiritual master becomes very pleased, and then he is ready to bestow blessings upon the disciple. Yeshwara Puri, how he served Madhavendra Puri, and Madhavendra Puri was so pleased and gave blessings. In that way, the story can be taken in that way, even for any disciple to serve the Guru. And it's not that the Bhagavatam is focused on Parodharma, but in the course of the different stories in the Bhagavatam, the different aspects of the Varnashram Dharma, they also come. They also come. And Prabhupada, I am sure that when you read the purports of the different acharyas on that particular verse, the acharyas might not have commented much or commented little, but Prabhupada chose to comment one-page purport because Prabhupada realizes the importance of teaching principles of Varnashram Dharma. Therefore, he highlighted that. And otherwise, spiritually also we can learn because this disciple serving the Guru from the character of Shukanya serving Chavana Rishi. Yesterday's question, in ISKCON today, there is opinion that brahmacharis while joining should not surrender all his savings to the temple, which in case would be needed when he changes to Grahastha ashram or during any other crisis, it may help. ISKCON organization or devotee community may not help. Some people say that to surrender fully and depend on the Lord. But seeing Nabhaga's story in this light, what do you suggest? We cannot we cannot legislate. It has to be one's individual inspiration. Definitely, this in the case when we talk about from the point of view of principle of a brahmachari ashram, they don't store anything. They actually give everything to the spiritual master from principle point of view. But at the same time, as I mentioned, that there are some practical considerations of staying in an organization or community, which are valid considerations. There was one devotee who was who had certain wealth, and then who came and gave to his spiritual master, who was brahmachari at that time. And the spiritual master told him, no, don't give this to the temple, you keep it with you in your bank account or something, and it will be needed later, like that he told. But the devotee, many years later, he got married, and then that was needed at that time. But it's not that then with what intention the spiritual master told. But yeah, the principle, ideal principle is there sometime, but the practical considerations are also there. One has to see one's individual inspiration. And act accordingly. That's how I would say. I cannot legislate, oh, everybody, one should surrender everything to the temple, and then create some guilt. And suppose, like, if we say that, and then as I mentioned that, like when somebody comes to surrender in a temple or a mutt or something, the people who are accepting the service of that person, they also have the responsibility to take care of that person materially, but of course spiritually. If something happens to him, one should take full charge of the physical, medical expenses, everything. So because sometimes in an institution they're unable to take care, and therefore, so they tell that, okay, if you are joining, you can join. If you have some money, you keep it with you only, because they don't have the confidence that whether the institution will be able to take care. So therefore, they tell that. So one has to see on a more personal inspiration, and that's how I would say. At the same time, yeah, one shouldn't. It's not that a person have crores of money and then keeps crores of money in the account, and then he's also joining the temple. So that becomes a very artificial situation. Some has some, say, some thousands or a few lakhs or something like that. Suppose especially some old parents are there, then one may keep it because it may be helpful for taking care of the parents or something when something may be required in the family. So not every temple in ISKCON, they are financially strong to take care of the, say, brahmacharis or the brahmacharis' parents. Okay, somebody has any direct question they want to ask anything?
Prabhuji, one question is there. Like we hear that Bhagavatam means all the devotees, like Prahlad Maharaj perfected his life by Shravanam. So, and Amrish Maharaj is doing all, Smaranam. Parikshit by Shravanam. So, but Prabhuji, even these devotees also, they have done in their whole life worship of the Lord and tasting the Tulsi Maharani and serving the devotees. So here specifically Amrish Maharaj is mentioned, but all other devotees have also perfected their life, not only by those. We only hear their, like Parikshit Maharaj, we hear all his life he heard at last while he was living. So, but he perfected his life by that activity, but earlier also he was a Mahabhagavat. So he must be doing all the activities. So why it is emphasized in the scriptures that they perfected life through only one activity, and here Amrish Maharaj is emphasized that he is doing all activities.
Why is it emphasized?
Why it is like you made the statement, like Amrish Maharaj is a special case here because he did all the activities. So it is understandable that all devotees do all the activities.
Yeah, but some devotees, they mainly are attached to some activity of bhakti. Parikshit Maharaj, he must have performed deity worship also during his when he was ruling the kingdom. He might have gone to holy places also. But Parshit Maharaj mainly is known for how he heard Bhagavatam for 7 days and 7 nights. He perfected his life by Shravanam. So, and it's not, of course, Prabhupada says in a purport that even if a person takes one among the 9 items of bhakti and performs it perfectly, and by that also one can attain the ultimate perfection. Performed perfectly. But in the case of bhakti, even if one anga of bhakti is taken and then properly performed, one can attain perfection. So these other devotees, they may have performed the other items of bhakti, but they predominantly focused on either Shravanam or Kirtanam or Smaranam. Yeah, Shukdev Goswami also, he heard from Srimad Bhagavatam from Vyasadeva. But when he narrated Srimad Bhagavatam, by that he attained his perfection, he became like famous, he attained his maturity. So therefore he's known mainly for Kirtanam. I don't know, Shukdev Goswami engaged in deity worship, etc. But he mainly attained his perfection by Kirtanam.
One more question is there. You talked about the Parinishta Bhakta and Nirapeksha Bhakta. So I have just little one query about it. The Tukaram Maharaj comes in which Prabhuji, which category? Because actually, Prabhuji, I read the book because he's a pure devotee, and it is mentioned that Lord Vishnu told that you go to the material world and live a nice, ideal family life, and you teach all the people. So, but means he was living also, and he was detaching also. Means how to understand which category he comes? Because we want to understand that those devotees, as you mentioned, like Amrish Maharaj, you said that he left the management to other people and he did. So he was living like Tukaram Maharaj, or how he was living?
No, Amrish Maharaj, he responsibly performed, but through the representatives. To the representatives, he performed ruling the kingdom. So he was a Parinishthita Bhakta. He performed all the sacrifices. He appointed the right kind of people. Tukaram Maharaj also seems to be in Parinishta Bhakta. And sometimes a Parinishta Bhakta, when he develops a complete attraction to the Lord, then he just becomes oblivious to the responsibilities. He just, it may appear to be irresponsible, but actually because of his increased attraction to the Lord, he may become just aloof from even the responsibilities. And he comes to the stage of Nirapeksha. That comes just naturally for him. So Tukaram Maharaj was performing Parinishta Bhakta, and then maybe he also became Nirapeksha. But Nirapeksha and Parinishta Bhakta, both are actually pure devotees. Both are elevated people.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, here Amrish Maharaj's qualities are mentioned. And in verse 17, it is mentioned, Prabhuji, Loshtravat. So, Amrish Maharaj saw the entire universe as insignificant as a piece of stone. So, and you told Prabhuji that from this we can infer that Amrish Maharaj is at the stage of prema because he's not attracted to moksha, like any material things. And then Prabhuji, we also heard that there is a Tyagi, Bhogi, and Bhakta. That they have different consciousness. That Tyagi gives up everything material, and the Bhogi enjoys himself, and the devotee engages everything in service of Lord. then why, although how we can understand Prabhuji that he's at the stage of prema, then why he's not engaging world in service of the Lord?
No, that's why he is ruling the kingdom. He is ruling the kingdom. He is engaging in the service of the Lord. But he considered everything as lostravat in the sense that he considered the enjoyment for oneself from the sense objects. He considered that to be like a dream. He didn't give, he considered the material enjoyment from the different, say, sense objects or the from ruling the kingdom. That he considered very insignificant. But he used whatever facilities he had, everything in the service of Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
So
One question I have, bro. In this verse, again that 20th verse, Uttama Shloka Jana Shraya. So Prabhupada writes that if one takes shelter of a devotee such as Prahlad, so why specifically Prahlad is mentioned there? The 20th, 1920.
Prahlad Maharaj is such an elevated devotee, because even in the 7th canto it is mentioned that even when there would be discourses in the heavenly planets on devotional service, they would say devotee means he should be like Prahlad. So Prahlad is always referred as an example or a role model devotee, even by the Devatas. Rupa Goswami mentions in Laghu Bhagavatamrita one verse where he quotes that if we keep all the Vaishnavas on one side of the scale, and on another side of the scale if we keep Prahlad, and Prahlad would be equal to all the Vaishnavas put together, as he quotes a verse. So Prahlad Maharaj is a very elevated, recognized devotee. Therefore Prahlad is mentioned. But there are many pure devotees, but Prahlad is that sense is recognized. So therefore Prabhupada is quoting that. Staying amongst a demoniac situation, he stood steadfast in devotion. Yes. So I think I'll go ahead. So I'll complete some more verses. And then if they have some other questions, the last 5 minutes will take. So we are in 27th verse. I'll go a little fast now. Griheshu dareshu suteshu bandushu dvipottamasvandana vaji vastushu akshaya ratna baranambaradish ananta kosheshvakarota sanmatim.
Maharaj Ambarish gave up all attachment to household affairs, wives, children, friends, and relatives, to the best of powerful elephants, to beautiful chariots, carts, horses, and inexhaustible jewels, and to ornaments, garments, and an inexhaustible treasury. He gave up attachment to all of them, regarding them as temporary and material.
So bhakti paresha anubhavo virakti ranyatra chaisha. When a person advances in bhakti, as a natural result, a person becomes detached. When a person is hungry, when he starts eating, so 3 things happen simultaneously. The hunger starts disappearing. He feels nourished. He gets a happiness. So Ambarish Maharaj, again this which was explained previously, Ambarish Maharaj, as a result of his advancement in bhakti, he developed a detachment from Griha, Dara, Sutta, Bandhu, etc. And then so the proof of, like, what is the proof that whether we are, suppose we have different say facilities or object or wealth in our, say, with us we are using that in the service of Krishna. So what is the proof that we are attached to them for the sake of preaching, or whether we are attached to the facilities? Sometimes certain facilities are given for serving Krishna. And then what is the proof that whether we are attached to the service or whether we are attached to the facilities? And it will be proven when those facilities are taken away. If those facilities are taken away, so what is our reaction? So in the case of Arjuna, power was given to Arjuna for accomplishing the mission of Krishna. But when his weapons were taken away, when he was defeated by some ordinary infidel cowherdman, that time Arjuna did not lament for the loss of the powers. He lamented because of being separated from Krishna. Krishna has disappeared from this world. So when some particular facility is taken away, if we are actually lamenting for the loss of the particular facility, that means we are attached more to the facility than to the service. So Arjuna lamented because Krishna disappeared. So then, Tasma adat daris chakra pratyanika bhayavakam ekanta bhakti bhavena bhaktabhi rakshanam. So the Supreme Lord, being pleased by the devotion of Ambarish Maharaj, he gave the Sudarshan disc for the protection of Ambarish Maharaj. So sometimes a devotee may not be expert in the self-defense, but because a devotee is fully dependent on Krishna, and Krishna wants to protect the devotee, he wants to ensure that the devotee is protected. So therefore, the Krishna actually gave his Sudarshan disc, Sudarshan chakra, for the protection of Ambarish Maharaj. So this disc is extremely fearful to the non-devotees. Therefore, although Maharaj Ambarish was fully engaged in devotional service, his kingdom was free of all fear of adversity. Especially if you go in South India, many of the Divya Desham temples, almost in all the Vishnu temples, there is one important altar is the altar of Sudarshan Chakra. And there are certain temples, different temples, they are famous for different Sudarshan Chakra deities. Sudarshan Chakra with this many hands, or the Sudarshan Chakra with this many, or this thing. The different temples, specialties of Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra is the chief weapon of the Lord. So Lord personally gave his actually weapon for Ambarish Maharaj's safety. So that the Ambarish Maharaj bhakti should not be disturbed. So therefore he gave his Sudarshan Chakra. So Ari Radha Yushup Krishnam Mahishya Tulya Shilaya Yukta Samvatsaram Viro Dadara Dwadashi Vratam. So Ambarish Maharaj, wanting to worship the Supreme Lord along with his queen, who was also having a same temperament, who was also equally qualified. And he decided to perform the Dwadashi Vrata for one year. So, and where he was, so Prabhupada explains here. So unless your wife is equally as qualified as her husband, household affairs are very difficult to continue. So Ambarish Maharaj, his wife was also similarly having a similar disposition. Both were performing this Dwadashi Vrata. And in the month of Kartika, after observing the vow for 1 year, Vrata for 1 year, and after observing a fast for 3 nights, and after bathing in Yamuna, Ambarish Maharaj worshipped the Lord in Madhuvan. So, and so there was a proper rules for actually bathing. Ambarish Maharaj followed the different regulative principles for a major bathing ceremony, Maha Abhisheka. So Ambarish Maharaj, at the completion of that vrata, he bathed the deity of Krishna, Sarva Upaskara Sampada, with all the paraphernalia, and then he worshipped the deity with the fine clothing, ornaments, and garlands and dhupa, and he satisfied the Brahmanas. And the next verses describe that how he gave charity to the Brahmanas. He gave the Brahmanas 600 million nicely dressed young beautiful cows with full milk bags, and whose horns were covered with gold plate and whose hooves were covered with a silver plate. So after feeding all the Brahmanas to the full satisfaction with the tasty foods, he was about to observe the end of the vrata. So he was really opulent actually. Sometimes nowadays, if you want to give even one cow in charity, sometimes somebody is having certain dosha, and astrologer recommends that you give one cow in charity to a Brahmana, like that. So first of all, to get one cow is costly, and then many times even if you want to give one cow in charity, to find a person who will accept that charity is difficult, because accepting that cow means he has to maintain that cow properly. And that means he has to have a proper setup and manpower, time. And what to speak of like giving so many, like millions of cows in charity, dressed nicely with a gold plate and hooves, etc. And we can see another principle is that when we want to give charity, we give the best things, whatever is the best thing we have, we should give that best thing as a charity, and not something which is substandard or which is useless. So at that time, when he was about to break the fast, Durvasa Muni arrived, and Ambarish Maharaj offered him a seat, and he offered a proper asana, and then he requested Durvasa Muni to honor prasadam. And Durvasa Muni gladly accepted that request, but he said that I have to complete my daily rituals. I will go to Yamuna and take my bath, and then I will actually come and actually take prasadam. So he went to Yamuna and he meditated upon the impersonal Brahman. So Durvasa Muni was more attached to the impersonal Brahman. So that is what the verse, 37th verse says that. Yeah, he meditated upon the impersonal Brahman. And then in the meantime, the time for actually breaking that vrata, that time was about to get over. Only 24 minutes was left on which the only 24 minutes was left to actually break the vrata, or to complete that vrata. So at that time, Ambarish Maharaj started consulting the Brahmanas, because he had been observing that vrata for 1 year. And it is important that one should actually complete that vrata also at the appropriate time. So therefore he consulted the Brahmanas. And like we say, in English, we say that what is the fast breaking time? But in the original Sanskrit word is that vrata parana timing, vrata parana kala. So if you see, the vrata does not exactly mean fasting. In English, we say fasting, but the original Sanskrit word is vrata. Vrata means a vow. So fasting is one of the activities of that vrata. Fasting is one of the activities of the vrata, one of the activities of the vow. So the day of Ekadashi is ideally supposed to be free from all the encumbrances. A day which is supposed to be dedicated to giving full attention to Krishna. and therefore a person takes vrata to actually reduce the bodily activities. And paranam means what? Paranam is translated as, okay, breaking, break fast. But paranam actually means successful completion. Par lagana, successful completion. So therefore, vrata paranam literally means what? Successful completion of the vows. So break fast is not the exact translation of vrata paranam. We are not supposed to break our vows. We are supposed to complete our vows. You can see the difference between saying breaking the fasting instead and the completing the vows. So vrata paranam is successful completion of the vows. So breaking the vows means something. It can mean that, okay, you start eating before the Ekadashi gets over. Like breaking the rules, it can have that connotation actually. So vrata paranam. So on the parana day, a devotee takes permission with a heavy heart from his beloved deity of Krishna in order to go back and be absorbed in our day-to-day activities. Therefore, the devotee completes his Ekadashi vows by praying that Ajnana Timirandasya Vrate Nanena Keshava Prasida Sumuko Nata Jnana Deepti Pradobhava. So what is this prayer? This prayer comes in Haribhakti Vilasa. The devotee prays, O Lord Keshava, please bestow favor on this insignificant soul, blinded by ignorance, and kindly bestow the eyes of divine knowledge as a result of following this Ekadashi Vrata. So, Ambarish Maharaj was thinking that to transgress the laws of respectful behavior towards the Brahmanas is certainly a great offense. Brahmana atikrame dosho dvadashyam yad aparane. And on the other hand, if a person does not observe the completion of the fast within the stipulated time, then there is a flaw in one's observance of the vow. Therefore, I have to complete that. I shall break the fast. I shall complete the fast by drinking water, so that I can have auspiciousness of the vow, and at the same time, I will not be touched by adharma. So Ambarish Maharaj asked the Brahmanas, consulted the Brahmanas, what is your opinion? What should I do? And he saw that the Brahmanas were silent. They were unable to resolve the issue. So then at that time, he considered the issue himself, and he made a decision with this following, with the above reasoning which I just mentioned, that I will drink water on the day of Dwadashi. It would be equivalent to that. I would have completed the vow that I have eaten. But since water is not considered food, I will not have eaten. Therefore, in that sense, I will not have insulted the Brahmana. So, you see, in the Vedic culture, Atiti Satkar is a very important thing, and especially Atiti Satkar towards the Brahmana, that's also an important thing. There are so many stories just connected to the Atiti Satkar. The whole Bhagavatam is born out of a improper Atiti Satkar. When Parishit Maharaj was not received properly by Samika Rishi, that led to the cursing by Shringi, and that led to Parishit Maharaj putting the dead snake and the cursing by Shringi, and then that led to Parishit Maharaj's renunciation, and then the Bhagavatam being spoken. So Sudama's story, what transformed the heart of Sudama was the guest reception offered by Krishna. And Ranti Dev's story is the kind of hospitality he provided to the different people. So there are so many stories in regards to actually Atiti Satkar. So It's a very important principle, but at the same time, he had been observing the vow. He had to complete the vow at a particular time. So Ambarish Maharaj decided to drink little water. So after he drank some water, Ambarish Maharaj was meditating upon the Lord with his mind, and he waited for the return of the Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Yamuna Kulat Kritavashyaka Agataha Rajnabhinanditastasya Bubude Cheshtitam Diya. So Durvasa Muni, when he was returning from the bank of Yamuna, he was received by Ambarish Maharaj. He could understand with his intelligence that Ambarish Maharaj had drunk water. So then the Durvasa Muni started trembling because of his anger. Manyuna Prachalad Gatro Brukuti Kutilananaha. So his face was frowning. And in that state, he started speaking to Ambarish Maharaj, who was actually standing there with folded hands. Was standing there with folded hands. Aho asyan shamsasya shriyonmattasya pashyata dharma vyatikramam vishnur abhaktasyesha maninaha. Can read 44th verse.
Just see the behavior of this cruel man. He is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence and his position, he considers himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the laws of religion.
So Durvasa Muni is actually criticizing or chastising Ambarish Maharaj in different ways. Nisham Sasya. For each of these words, alternative meanings are given by the Acharyas. So Nisham Sasya, it means here that one who is so cruel. But another meaning is that Ambarish, who is praised by all the people. Shriya Unmattasya. So Shriya Unmattasya, it means one who is puffed up because of great opulence. But Sanskrit is such as this one, by choosing to actually use the syllables in a different way, the meaning can be changed. So Shriyon Mattasya can mean that Ambarish, who is not intoxicated with wealth. Abhaktasya means not a devotee, but another meaning is that to whom no devotee can compare. Isha Maninaha. So Ambarish, who gives regard to the Lord. Isha Maninaha. Because he did not transgress Dwadashi. This is the alternative meaning. Or Isha Manina means Ambarish, who is respected by Isha, Indra and other devatas. Vyatikramam. Vyatikramam normally means offense. But here it means that having not transgressed dharma. So vi atikramam. So this Ambarish invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, he has eaten first. So I shall show you the result of your act. So Durvasa Muni is prepared to release the demon. What happens later, we will see that tomorrow from the 46th verse. So I'll discuss tomorrow. Let us see, we can complete this chapter. There is a book written by Shivaram Maharaj only on this Ambarish Maharaj episode, and especially focusing on the verses spoken by Lord Vishnu to Durvasa Muni about the position of the devotees and devotional service. So I'll try to discuss from that particular book. Yes, nicely described in that book.
Prabhuji, what is the name of the book?
Sadhavo Hrudayam Mayam.
Hare Krishna.
Verse. Yes, sir.
Yes, Prabhuji, question is there.
Yes.
You mentioned the story of Padma Puran, this Vritti and Suvritti. We have also heard that one Brahmana and one prostitute story. That Brahmana was thinking that how this wretched and this prostitute is, and then prostitute was thinking that how this Brahmana is so having a good consciousness, he's having opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. So then again Yamdutas came and they took the Brahmana. So Prabhuji, this story Subhritti, this is given in Padma Puran. Correct, no, Prabhuji? So
Yes.
Prabhuji, means this is just to mention about the consciousness, because it has many things to do only at the time of death. Like we also hear somebody takes the gun and shoots and then say Hare Krishna. So just because here his consciousness is not good, but he can utilize the value of holy name. Somewhere we hear like Muslim chanted haram and he went to back to Godhead. And somewhere we hear that even though he's going to Janmashtami program, celebrating everything, I seen the darshan of Lord. Like we hear a story like a rat in the body of a rat. He simply helped a week to be burned. And in the Vishnu temple, then he got a human form, or he went to back. Like even one prostitute went to the temple and he made a garland for Radharani on Radhashtami. So she got elevated. So sometimes we hear the glories of the holy name, sometimes the consciousness. So it is just to mention the consciousness, or it's a because whole life calculation has to be done. No?
Yeah, those stories, all these stories about somebody chanting the holy name by chanting haram and all these stories, they are all true stories. They talk about how one act of bhakti performed without offense is so powerful. How the act of bhakti, the name chanted in the Namabhasa stage, how it is actually so powerful. So those stories should not be taken as an exaggeration. They have to be taken as it is. Like another point, maybe I didn't mention, I forgot to mention, but Ambarish Maharaj is compared with a Nriga Maharaj. Nriga Maharaj was also a devotee, but Nriga Maharaj considered the statements about the glories of bhakti to be an exaggeration. Therefore, King Nriga, he spent a lot of time and energy to perform the karma kanda activities. He considered the glories of the fruitive activities mentioned in the Vedas to be as it is, exactly true. Sometimes it is mentioned you perform this Chaturmasya, you perform this particular yajna, you will go to heaven and you will reside there eternally in heaven. Like that, statements are there. So one cannot stay in heaven eternally. So there are many statements glorifying the fruitive activities, but he considered those statements literally, and those statements which glorify the path of bhakti, he considered those statements to be exaggeration. So therefore, he put his full time and energy to perform fruitive activities. He was a devotee, but he didn't give so much of attention to the activities of bhakti. But Ambarish Maharaj, because he considered the activities of bhakti, the glories of bhakti to be as it is, therefore he put his full energy for bhakti. But whereas he performed the different sacrifices through the representatives, while he himself was absorbed in the activities of bhakti. So, like regarding your point that, so these stories, rat offering some lamp and all these things, these stories actually tell us the power of even one act of bhakti performed without offense, how it is very powerful, how it elevates a person. They have to be taken as it is. And then at the same time, there are sections like these stories in Padma Puran where it's mentioned that how one should invest one's mind in the activity of bhakti. when a person knows the, say, glory of that activity, but still when a person is little inattentive, then when a person is deliberately inattentive, then it becomes an offense. Therefore, so in order to highlight that, these stories are there. So scriptures actually, when they speak about different subject matters, they highlight different principles. A few days back, I was hearing, was reading the Niti Shataka of Bhartruhari. There are 100 verses, 10 verses on different topic, 10 verses on one topic, 10 verses on another topic. First 10 verses are about who is a fool. Next 10 verses are about who is a learned person. And then another 10 verses are about wealth, artha. So when it was describing about artha, I think one of the beginning verse or something, he mentions that what is the use of good qualities, what is the use of high birth, what is the use of knowledge. All these things are useless without the wealth. So that is how he mentions actually. Because we know that knowledge or bhakti is higher than that. But sometimes when he wants to emphasize the importance of artha on a practical level to lead a life, so he is mentioning that if a person does not have artha, then he can't accomplish anything, even if he has good qualities and other things. So sometimes that is emphasized in a particular way. Some things cannot be taken literally, but sometimes scriptures want to emphasize something. So in this story of Vritta and Suvritta, they want to highlight how one should actually invest one's mind in the activities of bhakti. Especially Vritta and Suvritta, they were learned people. They were aware of the glories of bhakti, but still one person, when he was participating in Janmashtami, he was thinking of the activities in the brothel. Therefore, he got the reaction.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, this 1 year fast of Ekadashi and Dwadashi. So can you explain what is it? Because we also have fasting on Ekadashi, but what is 1 year fast?
That must be some special kind of vrata. So the previous ages, people had a greater capacity for performing vrata. So therefore, such vratas were also in place during that times. People had a greater capacity to observe fasting. So more details about that vrata are not mentioned. So Ambarish Maharaj, because he was there in the previous age, maybe could be Satya Yuga or Treta Yuga. Therefore, he was observing that particular vrata, which is meant for 1 year. I do not know more.
This also we heard.
Can you tell the Sanskrit name of the first type of renunciation? So Prasava Vairagya. Prasava is the during the time of delivering the child. Prasava Vairagya, Smashana Vairagya, and Abhava Vairagya. We're mentioning about someone in Vatsalya Bhava merging into Yashoda Mai in the spiritual world. But we know about individuality of the soul is never lost, even in the spiritual world. So how do we understand this? No, I don't know where I mentioned. So one cannot merge into Yashoda Mai, the spiritual world. Someone, Vatsalya Bhava merging into the Yashoda Mai in the spiritual world. We cannot merge into the bodies of the eternal associates. Yes. We can follow in the footsteps of the Yashoda Mai. Yeah, as you mentioned, it is true that the individuality of the soul is never lost, even in the spiritual world. One can follow in the footsteps of Yashoda Mai, and then one can one can become a good assistant of Yashodamai in the spiritual world. One cannot merge into Yashodamai in the spiritual world.
Prabhu, one question.
Parinishta and Nirapeksha. Does Parinishta lead to Nirapeksha? So Parinishta and Nirapeksha, at least I don't remember, they are being mentioned as, so this is superior or this is inferior. So Parinishta Bhakta is a devotee who is still having some important role in this world. So therefore, he cannot become aloof to the responsibilities. Therefore, he responsibly performs his Varnashram Dharma, but he worships the Lord mainly by the 9 processes of bhakti. So Nirapeksha devotee, he does not have the obligation to set example for the society or the family. Therefore, and he is so elevated, he is so transcended that he just completely focuses on bhakti. So when Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna spoke Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, that verse referred to the surrender of the Nirapeksha Bhakta. Nirapeksha Bhakta has nothing to do with Varnashram. That is why Krishna says Sarvadharman Parityajya, abandon all dharmas of the Varnashram Dharma and just surrender unto me. So this verse is basically Krishna is telling, Krishna is talking about how one should surrender like the Nirapeksha Bhakta. So Krishna is remembering the gopis of Vrindavan. One must surrender like the gopis of Vrindavan, how they actually gave up all their dharmas of chastity and then they surrendered to me. So when Arjuna heard that, he was excited about the glories of the gopis when he heard that particular verse. But from the point of view of Arjuna, in the Krishna glorified gopis, but Krishna told Arjuna, you must surrender with the same spirit of the gopis, but I want you to be the Parinishthita Bhakta. You imbibe that spirit of a Nirapeksha Bhakta like that of the gopis. But with that spirit, you be a Parinishthita Bhakta because I want you to fight the battle. So Parinishthita Bhakta, he has the same spirit as the Nirapeksha Bhakta. But with that spirit, he performs his devotional service and also he performs his Varnashram duties. Nirapeksha Bhakta does not do anything of Varnashram. He is completely internally absorbed. So
basically, Parinishta can also be Nishkama, Karmi, where he is really not looking at fruits, because generally the Varnashram is considered to be not part of pure devotional service that we study, and that is because some desire is there. But now with Arjuna giving up all desire for results, he is just simply focused on what Lord is saying. That becomes Nirapekshita, right? Because he has anyway given up the desire to even win. He wants to go to forest. And now he is just following what Krishna is telling.
Parinishthita Bhakta performs the Varnashram duties and he is a pure devotee. He basically, and he is a responsible. All of us are expected to be Parinishthita Bhakta actually. That means we have to execute our devotional service and we have to perform our Varnashram duties responsibly. All of us are expected to be Parinishthita Bhakta. Nirapeksha Bhakta he has nothing to do with Varnashram. Varnashram is something to do with the body. And Varnashram duties are related to the bodily identities. And Nirapeksha Bhakta is such a Bhakta, like Jada Bharat, when people would throw the food which is meant for the horses, and Jada Bharat would not protest anything because he has transcended the bodily platform. When Madhavendra Puri, when he would be hungry, he would not even make an attempt to beg from somebody. Only if somebody comes on his own and then offers something, Madhavendra Puri accept that. So Nirapeksha Bhakta is he doesn't like he's transcended the bodily platform. He just focused completely internally. So Parinishthita Bhakta, so the Pandavas, the Prithu Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, all these were Parinishthita Bhaktas because Prahlad Maharaj ruled the world for one Manvantara, Prithu Maharaj ruled for a long time, Dhruva Maharaj ruled for 30,000 years. The Lord wanted the devotees to be Parinishthita Bhakta because in this world, he wants the devotees to responsibly perform their duties because that will create a stability for so many people around them. That will create a stable platform for many people for them to practice. It will help the others to practice bhakti. So therefore, the Lord wants so many devotees to be like in the Parinishthita Bhakta, all of us. So, and somebody when he becomes completely internally absorbed, then it becomes one naturally becomes an Nirapeksha. It cannot be some enforced or something. Nirapeksha Bhakti example is Shukdev Goswami, Jada Bharat, or Madhavendra Puri. They didn't perceive anything on the bodily platform. Shukdev Goswami, he couldn't even distinguish between a male and a female. That was the level of Nirapeksha Bhakta. So it's the Parinishthita Bhakta. Vyasadeva was acting in the Parinishthita. Vyasadeva was distinguishing between male and female. So, in one sense, just like we say Kanishta Madhyam Adhikari, Uttam Adhikari, we are expected to come to the level of Madhyam Adhikari. So similarly, when we say Sanishta Bhakta, Parinishthita Bhakta, Nirapeksha Bhakta, we are expected to come to the stage of Parinishthita Bhakta. That means performing the Angas of Bhakti and also performing the Varnashram duties responsibly by following the principle of Nishkama Karma Yoga.
Sanishta, you said now Sanishta. And then
Sanishta Bhakta is that is another kind of devotee which Baldev Vidyabhushan has mentioned. Sanishta Bhakta advances gradually by first practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga, and then he comes to Jnana Yoga, and then to Dhyana Yoga, and then he takes to Bhakti Yoga. There's a gradual progress of the Sanishta Bhakta. So I think it is 146. We must end.
So last
otherwise,
question. Last question is that Nirapekshita is similar to Jnani in the right sense. Jnani is taken in different senses. I'm not saying about Jnani as being put down in many places, but Jnani in the right sense, in the sense that he doesn't really consider on the right side at all, the bodily platform at all. He only considers his connection with the Lord. That's in that sense a Jnani. So
sometimes it is better not to mix up different terms. Let us study the different terms separately. Nirapeksha Bhakta, whatever understanding is given. So different terms will have different meanings in different contexts. Nirapeksha Bhakta is just Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Irantarcha Vridavrata. 24 hours engaged in just activities of Bhakti. That's the Nirapeksha Bhakta. Sarvadharman Parityajya is a verse describing Nirapeksha Bhakta.
One practical last question, Prabhu, if it's okay. See, this question keeps coming, is that we always say that, it is in the hands of the Lord. Finally, whatever you do, it is in the hand of the Lord. And whatever you do doesn't matter. Lord desires, you will come out. Lord doesn't desire, you will not come out. It's not in your hands to come out of this loop of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So at the same time, definitely when we are doing something, of course, in very seriously and sincerely, of course, can we surely say yes, we are in the right direction? Yes, definitely, Lord will be, will definitely it sort of is going to result in going back to Him like that.
See, I would just say that we don't have to too much worry about going back to Godhead or something, because Krishna will never actually fail in his responsibility. We can just focus on how I can contribute more and more, instead of thinking all the time about one's personal going back to Godhead. We can think in terms of how we can create a better situation for others, for them to practice bhakti. So that is the more practical. Better to focus on what is in our hand, and Krishna never fails in his responsibility, in his reciprocation. And at the right time, whichever birth, maybe 5 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes, or 100 lifetimes, whenever it is deserving, the Krishna will do that. What is in our hand, we can focus on. We can try to do better whatever activities we are doing.
Thank you.
So I think we shall end here. Tomorrow we'll take.
Yes.
Sorry for extended the class.
Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, we'll have a class tomorrow also. Tomorrow is Friday. Same timing, 11 to 1:30. Hare Krishna.